We get this all the time, Jay.
All the time.
You should not worry about how close any test preparer's book or their practice questions are to the actual exam. What you're trying to do, Jay, is get intellectual ownership of the content, not get practice questions that you can memorize and pass. So I think Kaplan does a very good job. I think you might, when you take the test, say, oh man, I remember that question. But that's not where your focus should be. Your focus should be on mastering the content. Now that I've said that, I think Kaplan is the best, particularly their Q-Bank and their remediation. To answer your question, the best practice questions come from the test geek himself. Brian, I think, has the best practice tests in terms of intellectual inventory and doing diagnostics. Brian, your thoughts? It looks like you have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I describe this to people. Every test, to me, there is a gap between the publisher's test questions and the real test questions. The concepts are almost all the same, but they're not worded quite the same. They're not allowed to be. The exams are copyrighted material, so no one can duplicate what these exams are. The FINRA exams, SIE, Series 6, Series 7, that gap, in my opinion, isn't that big. They're pretty close. And like Dean said, I like Kaplan's the best because they give you such a wide diversity of the type of questions. When you get to the NASAA questions, 63, 65, 66, don't freak out. The gap between the way in which the publishers write it and the real test questions, that gap is a little wider. So it's far more important to understand the concepts. So no matter how they're asked, you still know it. Go, oh, state IA has a de minimis, right? No more than 5 clients. I don't care how it's written as long as I know that. So you don't ever want to memorize publisher questions because they're never going to be exactly.
The way I describe it, Brian, Jay, particularly, is, you want to read a question once to just understand what you're being asked. And I'm not opposed to even reading the answer set just to see what answers are available before you really kind of jump into a question. I think, as Brian just said, that's way more important on NASAA exams. What member of the cast are they asking about? On NASAA exams, we have securities professionals. There's 4 securities professionals: broker-dealers, security professional; agent of broker-dealer, security professional; investment advisory firm, securities professional; investment advisor rep. I first, in a NASAA exam, like to say, which securities professional is the question about? I had somebody today who missed a question, Brian, because they had an answer that they weren't to a question they weren't asked. The question was about an investment advisor, and they answered D, and it was truthful about a broker dealer. And he was upset that D was true, but he still got marked wrong. And I said, well, you got marked wrong because you answered a question you weren't asked. This question didn't say anything about broker dealers. Is your D choice true? It is, but it's not an answer to the question that was asked. So first read it. And then just came up a minute ago, Jay, particularly on NASAA exams. But the de minimis, you got to be real careful when you read a question. Is this an investment advisor? Okay, now I got to decide, is it federally covered advisor or state? Because then that'll change the answer. And, oh, damn, it's not about the investment advisor. It's about the investment advisor rep. Okay, is investment advisor rep a federally covered or investment advisor rep state? So, it's a real challenge,